next session. So you can use the reaction feature to raise your hand and ask your question live, or you can simply submit them in the chat section. Remember that we cannot provide any medical advice or personal consultation in this venue, so please try to keep your questions as general as possible. So with that, I would like to introduce Ali Hushmand, licensed marriage and family therapist and professional counselor at Everything Starts at Home. Ali?
Thank you very much, Courtney. Thanks everyone for being here today to talk about something that is very important and dear to all of us as parents. Parenting, especially parenting with a cancer diagnosis. The work that I do with families focuses on helping clients, patients dealing with cancer and their children, and provide them support around parenting, around helping them understand how it is impacting their family, and help them through this process and see how they can, as a family unit, adapt and cope with this difficult situation that they're in. So today, my conversation is going to be two parts. The first part is going to really focus on the impact of cancer and how you can communicate that to your children, talk about it with them, and how you can do that. The second part of it will be more focused on the parenting aspect of it. So today, I just want to be clear, we're not going to be doing a parenting class, rather understand how parenting is impacted by the diagnosis and how you as parents can provide support to your children during that time through your parenting. Please feel free to jump in if you have any questions. I want it to be conversational. I don't want it to be a PowerPoint presentation. So we'll keep it, informal. Ask any questions you have. I would love to hear about your experiences as well through this process, and share it with everyone if you feel comfortable. So let's start with the diagnosis. So everything seems to be okay. And one day after a doctor's visit or something that you don't feel is quite right, you're told that you have been diagnosed with cancer. At that moment, the way it impacts you is very different. It doesn't matter if you are a single parent, partners, couple. The cancer diagnosis suddenly takes center stage in your family. And children often are unfortunately forgotten at that initial stage of this diagnosis. It's crisis. I don't know what to do. We're trying to figure out how to get support for ourselves, medical support, treatment, trying to simply digest what has happened to us. And it is very important to have this communication with our children about how, what, when, where all these things are happening, and that the children are not left outside, not quite understanding what is happening to their parents and trying to figure it out on their own. Actually, Courtney, if I can ask you, how did you manage initially when you found out about it?
Yeah, I was shocked. It came from out of nowhere. Obviously, I'm young and didn't think I had a family history. Come to find out I did have a genetic mutation passed through my dad. But I initially, honestly, she was one of the first things I thought of. I was like, how, and because she was so young, it was hard to know how to explain, if to explain to her, if to even use the word cancer. And I really chose not to use the word cancer. She was so young, and I know it would be different for a different age, but like I said, she was 2.5. So really, I just told her that I was sick. and that I needed, that I had special doctors that were going to be helping me, that I was going to be okay. But she just knew I was going to the doctor a lot. And then when I started chemotherapy, it was, I'm going to get this special medicine, and the special medicine is going to make me better. But I'm going to get a little bit sick in the meantime, and there are going to be days where I don't feel well. So I tried to keep it in terms that she would understand, or at least have a concept of. But it was, and I had a village. I mean, I did not hesitate to send her to a playmate's house. My parents are close by. They took her a lot. And while I had to initially get over the feeling like I was neglecting her, or I was not able to be there for her, or I was missing out, I had to let go of that, because at the end of the day, I did realize that she really wasn't going to remember a lot of it, or any of it. And that at the end of the day, the synapses that she was forming in her little brain were just that she was loved, and that she was thriving. So that's kind of what I tried to do initially. And it seemed to bear fruit.
You did it pretty much perfectly. Let's put it this way. And it is amazing how you were able to quickly understand that the first person you wanted to take care of was your child. And I want to bring something really important. Moms and dads are impacted very differently. We're wired differently. We're very different in terms of how we deal with a crisis. Bless our moms, because the way they do it is very quickly wanting to take care of everybody else. Even right after being diagnosed with a difficult, scary diagnosis of cancer, the first thought that comes to their mind is, how am I going to help my family or my child? Or who's going to take care of them? What do I need to do? And that is a very different approach than I see very often, and research shows it, with fathers. Fathers are wired differently. The way they want to do it is fixing it. How can I fix that? What's the solution? What can I do to make this better? And the different approach between the moms and the dads sometimes can create conflict. And it's really important to understand that and work together that there's no right or wrong approach. Rather, what's the healthiest for your family? A diagnosis of a cancer is very unique to each family. It's not specific or general to everyone. It impacts you uniquely in the way your dynamic is within the family. But understand that dads sometimes feel very alone in that process, because they are helpless. They don't know what they can do to fix it. While at the same time, moms are trying to gather a village around them to get the help they need for the time that's needed. And the first thought goes to their children. And it is very important also to understand that children cope and adapt and understand illnesses differently, obviously depending on their maturity level, their age, their level of understanding, and we have to be sensitive to that. I think you had a great instinct there, Courtney, not to say the word cancer, because at 2.5, 3, even 5, it's very confusing. They don't understand what cancer is. Is it the same thing as having a cold or the flu, or having a boo-boo on the finger, or scraping my knees? They don't quite understand. But saying that I am sick, that I'm not feeling well, making them understand that there's something not working within your body, they can't understand that. And it's very important for us to approach our children differently depending on their age, especially if you have children, multiple, of different age. And you cannot approach them at the same time. You have to spend time individually with each one of them and really understand what they know also about cancer. So one of the first things I would say to all of you parents is be truthful, be honest. Children create their bond with their parents through that connection, through that honesty, that bond that they have. When we don't talk to them about what is happening, it creates a lot of confusion in them. They start imagining things in their head, thinking, have I done something? Or have I created this? Have I done something for my mom to be ill? Is it my fault? Do I have the same thing? Is this going to happen to me? Is this going to happen to somebody else in the family? They have a lot of questions, and it's very important for us to spend the time needed and make sure that they understand that it is not something that they have created, that is not their fault. It's not just because they were angry at us or said something mean to us or we had a fight that suddenly I am ill. You would be surprised sometimes, even with teenagers, the things that they imagine in their own head if we don't clarify it for them. So it's very important to be truthful. And with children from the age of 7 and on, we can use the word cancer with them. They can understand that it's a specific illness. We need to also clarify, obviously, to say cancer is not like other illnesses. It's not like a cold or the flu or something else. We need to make sure that they understand it's not contagious, for example. Many times in my work with teenagers, especially, one of the first things that they write down, I ask them to write down things that they understand about cancer. They write, I know it is contagious. I know I'm going to get it. I know mom has cancer, so it means I'm also to get cancer. Or I cannot drink from the same glass as she drinks, or I cannot do certain things because she can get me sick or I can get her sick. And we need to clarify this with them because they're helpless. They don't know what to do and they want to help, believe it or not. And it's very important to clarify all this. So there's quite a bit of psychoeducation that needs to happen with children. And you can do it on your own, or you can get external help, external support. There are organizations that have materials for that. There are therapists that can help you with this. The hospital have resources as well who can help you with this, your treatment centers as well with the social workers who are there. Hospitals have child life specialists who can also help you with that. But it is very important for them to have a basic foundation and understanding of what cancer is. And I see, Courtney, you wanted to ask a question.
Sorry, one thing too that was really kind of confusing for me at first is not wanting her to associate going to the doctor with bad outcomes. Something that's unique to cancer treatment is that the treatment itself is what's making you sick.
That is correct.
At the beginning, at least,
correct.
And to me, that I kind of became aware of that early on, and my I know some kids, it's hard to get them to take medicine, but my kid, no, she loves medicine and she's not scared of the doctor. But I didn't want her to then become scared of going to the doctor or not want medicine because I kept talking about this medicine that was making me very ill. It's like I was fine and then I would go to the doctor and I would come back and I was sick. Or yes. So with that too, it just seems like a weird nuance that I don't know how important it is to emphasize it or what to say,
Yes.
but or if that happens, or if that can happen, that if you talk about how I'm going to the doctor and then you come home and you're like throwing up and they're like, oh, I don't want to go to the doctor.
Exactly. And that's a great point you bring up, which is when you're doing that, when you're having that conversation with them about cancer, I would encourage you to educate yourself on how you can explain cancer to your child. I see a note in our chat with one of our audience member here saying that they shared with their 3-year-olds that they had an owie. So I understand that, that part of us as parents, we want to protect our children, and they can understand what owie means. However, they get owies as well. They fall, they get hurt. And in their mind, they're going to think, if I have an owie, do I have to go to the hospital right away? Or do I have to get strong medicine? Or is this going to happen to me? You have to make sure you explain, even to your young children, that I am sick, it's a serious illness, and I need to go get special medication. And you can even share the name of the medication. Say it's chemo, or even sometimes say, I'm going to have surgery. The question or the comment, Courtney, is about the treatment piece of it. The cancer conversation is really important, and for them to at least get a basic understanding of what is happening to you. And again, depending on the age, I would encourage you to use the word cancer and also actually explain what cancer is and how it works. One of the simplest way I sometimes explain, even to teenagers, is that our body is made out of cells, healthy cells. And what cancer is basically a different type of cell that has no business being in our body, basically. Meaning every cell in our body has a job to do. And you can use an example, say, for example, your skin. You lose skin, and then your healthy cells create new skin. That's their job. That's the only job that they have, is to create new skin cells. Other cells in our body create other things that are healthy for us. They regenerate, they renew, and that's what they do. Cancer cells, on the other hand, don't have a job. The only thing that they do, they simply grow and hurt other healthy cells around them. And we need to take care of that. And that simple explanation makes more sense to them, meaning that they understand that cancer cells have no business being in our body. They don't have a job per se, and they're not like our healthy cells. So in order to take care of it, we need to get some treatment or even surgery to remove, when we talk about, let's say, a tumor. And then, we can talk about a malignant or benign tumor, and even explain to them what's the difference between those two things. And to give them that basic foundation and understanding helps them not be confused, not to confuse it with another illness, and understand that this is very specific to this and nothing else. And also making sure they understand that they're not going to get it. It's not contagious. It's not something they're going to catch from somebody else, or even from mom, for example. So that aspect of it is very important. Then when it comes to the treatment piece of it, it's explaining to the children your treatment. More often, you're told ahead of time how the treatment is going to go, be it surgery, be it chemo, and what the schedule is. And it's very important for the children to know that, to know when you're going to treatment, what is going to happen at the treatment centers. Often I ask parents to take pictures, especially with COVID. We can now go, in the past, we could go with our parents in the cancer treatment centers and sit with them. But with COVID, we no longer can do this. But taking video or a picture and showing them where mom is, and to say, this is where I get my infusion, this is where I go to get my treatment, and showing them pictures of it. So in their mind, they're not imagining, they understand where they are.
And, we do have a question whenever you want to take a pause. Okay, Bethany, do you want to unmute yourself?
Sure. So I was diagnosed in January. I already had, for my type of cancer, I started with surgery. I already had my mastectomy. I'm kind of in that healing pause before I go into chemotherapy and then radiation. I have two children, one's 7-year-old and one's 3. For the 7-year-old, she's in first grade. And one of the things that I immediately did was talk to her teacher, reach out to the guidance counselor, get the resources, all of those things. Awesome. They've been checking in with her. She's engaged. She's not engaged. My concern is coming. My treatment, a bulk of my chemotherapy treatment is going to be coming during summer vacation. So I built, like you mentioned, I built this community. There are a lot of adults around her, people who are seeing her every day. And, you know, she's going to be in day camps and stuff, but the dynamic's going to be a little different. She's not going to have like that guidance counselor who's, you know, checking in on her once or twice a week. So I'd be curious to hear what types of things, and she's going to be, again, her schedule is transitioning right at the time where I'm going to be going through some of my most difficult treatment.
That is a great question, and you're actually a little bit ahead of me, and I'm going to answer that in a little bit, and I'm going to give you some of the things that you can do. There are about 5 to 6 things that I'm going to share with you that you can do as a parent to help your child during that. So, and if I don't answer it, please let me know if you need anything else. So one of the things, as Courtney shared as well, is to prepare our children in terms of what the treatment, not only what it's going to be, what it looks like. I actually have a binder, and I show children and teenagers, you know, what an MRI machine is, what an X-ray machine is, you know, what an infusion room looks like, you know, how do they give you a chemo, how do they give chemo? I actually have a real port that I can show children to say, this is what a port is, that bump that you see on your mom, that's what's there. And then I can explain to them how the chemo works and what they do. Then I explain to them what chemotherapy is, what type of medication it is, and help them also understand about the side effects. That's a very important piece of it. Children need to understand that this type of medication do have quite a bit of side effects. You know, for children, often seeing their parent lose their hair can be scary. They don't understand what is going on. We need to explain to them why they're losing their hair, why the chemo does that to our healthy cells, because it's working basically. And that's what we need. And then it at least helps them understand, okay, that's because of the medication that is happening. They need to understand some of these side effects. As parents, we also need to be very clear and explain to them, there are days I'm not going to be available. There are days I cannot get out of bed. There are days I'm too tired. There are days where I'm going to be sick, and explaining to them why those things are happening. These are side effects of the treatment. And unfortunately, that's what happens because they're very strong and powerful medication. And the more we can share these things with our children, the more they understand, the healthier it is for them. It's a lot of preparation for them, obviously, a lot of repetition. I cannot say that enough to parents, is especially with younger children, repetition is key. It's not once or twice, we've talked about it and it's done. It's something that you want to do on an ongoing basis with them. And when you're having this type of conversation, please be mindful of when and where you're having it. The where is, make sure it's in a safe place where they can cry, when they can talk, where they feel comfortable, not in a public place, for example, where it is difficult for them maybe to express what's happening internally. The when is also very important. Avoid having this type of conversation with them in the evening, for example, just before they go to bed. They're not going to have enough time to process it. They need time to process, because they might come back later on with questions, and then that basically means they're not understanding certain things. Saying it just before bedtime or a few hours before bed, it's not going to be helpful to them. Also, with younger children, 2 to 5 years old, they're very, very good at telling you when they've had enough information. They usually look at you, go, okay, and they turn around and they leave. It doesn't mean they're not interested. It simply means, I've got plenty right now. I cannot deal with much more than this. I'm going to go play a little bit. And play is their language. That's how they process things. So us spending time with them and playing is also very important. So
We have a few comments in the chat section.
Yes.
Just wanted to draw attention to. So Donna is sharing that my nephew who lives with me is 13 and so tired about hearing anything breast cancer related. He was 8 when I was diagnosed, and I found it helpful to explain things at his level. And then as well, people are mentioning children's books, that some of them, social stories specifically, were helpful for my preschooler. My first grader was angry about the books because her fun library books were replaced by cancer books.
Yes.
When cancer was already affecting our family so much. Depends on the kids, but in general, some of the books are really great.
Yes.
And then as well, somebody mentioned that there is a YouTube video from Avon, which was helpful, but a little too advanced for a 4-year-old.
Yes. Yes. So I see a pattern in some of these comments, especially with teenagers, where it gets to a point where they don't want cancer to be the center stage. They don't want their life to revolve around cancer, conversation being only about cancer. And the second part of my conversation, you'll get some strategies on how you can help with that. One of the first thing I would say to you is make it a point as a family, for example, to have weekly updates where that's the time you sit down and you talk about what's happening with the treatment or what's coming up, or any updates on medical things or treatment or anything else. And that's your time as a family to gather and talk about it. And then you can go back to, I would say, quote unquote, your routine that you know. Routine is key for children. That's their warm blanket. That's what they need. Cancer does what? Changes the routine. It completely changes everything. And that's what you're hearing from your children. It's not that they don't want to hear about it, that they don't care about it, or they don't love you, or they don't want to know anything about it. Basically, what they're saying, reading between the lines, is that I know you have cancer. I know you're going through treatment, but I'm also a child and I need to be a child. And I need to go back to what I remember and what I know, and I need help with that. And routine is one thing that can really help you with your children. And I'm going to quickly go back. I know we have about 10 minutes left, and I really want to highlight.
We do
how
have
much time do I have left?
Well, you have 10 minutes left. We do have one question related to what you were just talking about in the chat. So I'll go ahead and read that one before we move on. I have 2 daughters, ages 6 and 10, that have watched me go through my surgery, chemotherapy, targeted therapy over the past 1.5 years. My youngest daughter doesn't really understand what I've been going through and is happy as long as her needs are being met, much like what you were just saying, a lot of what I experienced as well. However, my older daughter gets quite upset when I talk about anything cancer related. She didn't want any of her friends to know about my diagnosis, so I did not tell her teachers or other parents that are close to us. But now it has become difficult, almost taboo subject in our home. I was trying to respect her need for normal life and privacy, but in the end, it has become a scary subject for her. Help.
Yeah, and I'm glad that this was brought up, actually. So what you're describing basically is that when they're upset about it, we as parents need to read between the lines. What they are actually trying to tell us is, I am scared. I don't want to lose you, Mom. I'd rather not hear about it because I get very scared. And when we talk about it, I don't know what to do with the emotions that I have internally. And I'd rather avoid it, basically. And this is where we need to step in as parents and to not normalize it, but get them help. Play therapy is wonderful. You can find therapists who can help you with that. There are organizations like Wonders and Worries who have wonderful resources for that. Children initially would want to avoid it because it's a scary thing to them, especially at that age. At around 8 to 10 years old, they start to understand the concept of death. that it's finite, and it becomes quite scary to them. So it's very important to not actually, and I know what you did was your instinct, and I absolutely understand it, is to honor what they're telling you, but a quiet child doesn't mean a happy child. And avoidance is not helpful. It's actually helping them to slowly process what's happening. Help them understand that it is scary, that you're also worried, but you're trying to do the best you can to get the help you need. And then also get them the help that they need so that they can process it in a safe environment for themselves. So I would encourage you not to help them avoid it, basically. Hope that answers your question. So given that I have very little time left, I really want to highlight some of the parenting support on your end that you can do to help your child through this process. So one of the things that happens with cancer is that children suddenly realize that they don't have control over much. They don't to begin with. But now they realize that life has changed completely within the family and they really don't have much control over anything. So as parents, one of the simple things that we can do is empower them, give them small responsibilities, even around the cancer treatment, for example, or any help that they can provide at the house or outside. Empower them with small things, depending on their age, that they can do, they can be in charge of, give them a perceived sense of control over certain things and empower them with that. And giving them that gives them a sense of comfort, control over certain things within the family, and that can help them. So that's one thing you can do. Create a routine, really. Remember, routine is key. I don't care if they are 3 years old or 17. Because of the cancer diagnosis, routine is changed. And we need to come back to a certain level of routine, be it around, having family roundtable or about the cancer updates if you want, or routine around their activities that they can continue doing around school things. Summer, for example, is if they usually do things in summer. If it's not possible, if you can ask for help from friends, neighbors, families who can help your children get some sense of routine during their summer vacation, anything you can do to reestablish a routine is important. So that's another thing you can do. They need physical and mental outlets. It's really important for them to have physical activities as much as possible. They need to release some of that stress, that anxiety through physical activities. They need also mental outlets, and that could be with school counselors, friends, family members, anybody, if you belong to a church, for example, could be through a therapist, for example. Anything that you can provide around their physical and mental health is very important. We cannot forget that. The same for you, basically. We need, especially with teenagers, encourage them around their social life. We need to sometimes nudge them and push them to continue their social life. Some of the things that I've seen often with my family is teenagers don't want any friends come to their home because they don't want their friends to know that mom is sick or mom has cancer. And that's also to answer one of our audience's question, which is children want to be like every other children. They want to be like everybody else. We teach them to be unique, but the reality of it is that they just want to be like everybody else. And when their mom has cancer, guess what? They're different and they feel like they're going to be treated differently. And so they don't want us to tell anyone about it or tell anybody at school or their friends or anything like that. And we can honor that initially, but we need for them to understand that yes, it is different, but they're still who they are, and encourage them around their social life, nudge them, push them to do it, maybe engage family members, friends who can invite them to do things with their friends and family, and have that social life continue. As I said, get external support. So when do you know you need external support? Meaning a therapist or organization that can provide you resources or help. With younger children, you'll know your child is going to need help when they start displaying physical issues, such as, bedwetting, high level of anxiety, difficulty sleeping, difficulty eating, change in behaviors. And these are things that out of the norm, if you want. Not it happens for a few days or even a week. This is something that you observe over a long period of time. I'm talking 5 to 6 weeks where these things are continuing. It's the intensity and the length of it is different than usual. These things happen, but if you see that your child is starting to isolate, has difficulty sleeping, or bedwetting is more common, or is afraid, or is fearful, all those things are telling you that there's something internally that is not working for them. So that's when you need to start seeking support outside the house. And therapists can be a wonderful way to do that. With teenagers, you'll see performance drop in schools or more isolations. You might see even a bit of depression here and there, and that could be transitional, but you don't want to ignore it. You want to tackle that very quickly.
We have
a
couple comments.
Yes.
Just since we don't have much time, I just want to make sure we capture them. Rachel's sharing, I ask, who owns the story? I own the story of having cancer. My kid owns the story of having a parent with cancer. We both have the right to tell our own story. So we both have to balance how much we share our own story. Example, one of us talking about cancer to a child's teacher, knowing that as a family, our stories overlap. It's a really cool perspective. And then Liz is sharing is asking any suggestions for handling questions about cancer that come from friends at school. I have a 6-year-old who started kindergarten this year. She was 4 and my son 2 at diagnosis with de novo metastatic breast cancer. I have been very matter of fact about my cancer and treatment, but have not discussed the possibility of me dying, and they are currently handling it well. And it is more of a background issue right now. But friends at school have grandparents, etc., who have died from cancer. I don't want to lie to them, but I feel like it is too anxiety provoking to discuss the possibility of my death. I am responding very well to targeted therapy right now. Any suggestions?
That is a much bigger question it's a wonderful question. I would say to you, the concept of death is an important conversation for us as parents to have with our children. But understand that before the age of 8, they don't quite understand what death is. After the age of 8, there's a more concrete understanding that when somebody dies, they're not coming back. So it's a difficult conversation to have, but it's a necessary one to have. I would need another 2 to 3 hours to talk about the concept of death in this process. However, I would suggest if you feel comfortable reaching out directly to me, if that's possible, or Wonders and Worries, I think somebody put the link out there, has wonderful resources on that as well. I would say to you that if I can finish on 2 things, our gift as parents is not to protect and shield our children from life, pain, and loss. Our gift to our children as parents is to prepare them to adapt and cope with these things that life throws at us. This is helping them build resilience growing up. they will experience all of these things at some point in life. So we can shield them, but not protect them completely in a way where they don't understand it and they don't know how to adapt and cope with it. And the second thing I would say to you, it is very overwhelming as parents when you are dealing with cancer to have to do all these things. And I would say just memorize this sentence for yourself. Just simply say to yourself, I am doing the best I can with what I have, where I am. That is all I can do in this moment. And
So
repeating
true.
that to yourself, and then even helping your children learn that and repeat that. And that's it. I appreciate the time, and I wish I
so
had
much,
more
Ali.
time.
Yes, thank you so much. It is time to wrap up here, but that was so helpful. I'm going to go ahead and paste the link to the summit so that you can move on to whatever you're going to next. So just as a reminder, an evaluation survey will be sent out when the summit closes at the end of the weekend. And if you submit your response, you'll be entered to win a one-on-one beauty session courtesy of Lipstick Angels, including a box of personalized, clean, non-toxic beauty products. So let's head over to the main stage for yoga and mindful self-compassion for well-being. Just click on the YSC logo at the top left of the event page to return to the main stage. Ali, again, thank you so much for your time and your expertise.
Thank you,
Such
everyone.
an important topic.
Thank
and
you.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your summit. Hi, Ronnie.